a tiny room, really, and there was no studio atmosphere at all. It was a highly unusual recording situation.
I think it worked very well for the Rolling Stones to do a record like this. That leads to cooperation, it leads to relaxation, it leads to creativity.
This year, A Bigger Bang turns 20, the band's first album of the 21st century, and their most stripped-down studio record in decades. But its creation was anything but straightforward. As so often in their history, the Rolling Stones faced another test. This is the story of how they came together and made A Bigger Bang, at the very moment it mattered most. It was 2003, and the Stones had just wrapped the massive 40 Licks World Tour. Their last studio album was 1997's Bridges to Babylon. While critically acclaimed, the album was seen by some fans as too polished and too modern. Recorded entirely at Ocean Way Studios in Los Angeles, Bridges to Babylon was a grand experiment. The band occupied the whole complex. Each room divided to different songs, with members working in shifting combinations, sometimes together, sometimes apart. The result was a contemporary-sounding record that earned the album a Grammy nomination. It had been nearly 8 years since the Stones had built an album from scratch. Aside from a major session in Paris to record new tracks for the 40 Licks compilation in 2002, the band hadn't truly worked on a full set of songs since Bridges to Babylon. They knew it was time for something new. First, though, came a break. As was typical after a tour, the Stones scattered to their respective corners of the world. In early 2004, Charlie Watts fronted his jazz quintet at Ronnie Scott's club in London. Mick Jagger stepped into the studio to record the soundtrack for the film Alfie, and Keith Richards appeared with Willie Nelson for a televised tribute show. The Stones kept busy with their individual projects. Life seemed normal, as it often did when the Stones were on official hiatus. Until June 2004. It was then the news came. Charlie Watts was diagnosed with throat cancer. The news hit the band hard. Charlie. I'd had a lump in my neck for 2 or 3 years. It was diagnosed as benign, but then the doctor took it out, found it was cancerous, and then they found it in my left tonsil too. I lay there thinking, well, normally you die. When I first found out about the cancer, I literally went to bed and cried. I thought that was it, that I'd only have another 3 months. Suddenly, the Rolling Stones were staring at an unthinkable future. That month, the Stones regrouped in Amsterdam, sans Charlie, to discuss what lay ahead. The question hung in the air. What would happen next? Mick. Charlie was straight up about it. The doctor says I have a 90% chance of being completely cured. I would have been in such a state. If Charlie had said, I can't do this tour, I've faced mortality, we would have had to change our minds. No one pressured him, but the treatments couldn't have been easy. I kept worrying, is he eating? I'm like a nanny. If we go out on tour, we gotta do a record. It shows you are an actual functioning rock band. I don't want to be one of those bands that just does hits. People say, I much prefer to hear Brown Sugar than some new song. Well, I don't give a shit what you prefer. Keith. The last tour, you might say, was basically resting on your laurels. It was like celebrating your wonderful career, your great success and all that. After that, we needed to prove ourselves again. A new album was decided. Mick and Keith decided to forge ahead while Charlie would join the process later. And as with every Rolling Stones album, pre-production began with just Mick and Keith. Keith flew to the quiet town of Poussy-sous-Cisse, where the two spent the summer writing and demoing songs. Here, the Glimmer Twins began shaping what would become the new Rolling Stones record. Over the summer months, Mick and Keith worked in France and later on the island of St. Vincent in the West Indies to work on demos, while Charlie began radiation therapy in July in London. Charlie. I didn't even want the family to come and see me. The best way, for me at any rate, was to be left alone, totally alone, like a dog that's been hurt. You go in there and you're terrified. All the machines, it's like space age stuff. The surgeons and nurses literally have your life in their hands. I didn't think of the Rolling Stones at all. Mick rang a few times. You have to get well. Don't worry about us. I was sorry not to be there when Mick and Keith were writing. In a way, it was fortuitous because they were on their own. It was a lot of fun for them to be together. Keith. It started in June last year. I went to Mick's house in France and we sat around. And at the time, Charlie was pretty ill and we didn't know. And we were looking at each other across the couches going, look, this is it. I go, Mick, you're on drums and I'll double on bass. In a way, we had to strip it down. And as it went along, we realized that we had something going there. And so we'd cut it all in Mick's house. There was a point, I'm sure, where he wanted to kick us out. As I said to Mick, listen, once upon a time, we cut a record in the south of France in my house, and it's called Exile on Main Street. And now it's your turn.
And Keith would encourage me to play the drums and everything, so I would play a lot of drums on the demos. That was kind of fun for me because I never played drums before. So, well, here you go then. There's your chance to learn drums.
As much as I enjoyed playing with Mick on drums, you know, between Mick and me as a rhythm section, we're pretty limited. Good backbeat, and we've managed to put songs together and say, well, it kind of goes like this, but when Charlie came in and picked up the sticks, man, boom, there you are.
On September 27th, Shirley Watts revealed that her husband Charlie's cancer treatment was successful. By November 2004, Charlie Watts and the rest of the Stones regrouped at Mick's home in France, joined by a small team of engineers and producer Don Was, to begin official recording sessions for A Bigger Bang. The sessions carried through into the spring of 2005, with the final takes completed that April. Keith. I don't think that between us there was any doubt that Charlie would beat cancer. I wondered how long and debilitating it might be, which Charlie answered in spades when he came back. He looked exactly the same, like he hadn't done anything more than comb his hair and put a suit on. When he came in, we were still running down the songs, rehearsing. You don't usually go into fifth gear in rehearsal. You lay back a little. But Charlie came in as if to prove, I'm back. He played every rehearsal like a show. Charlie. I was frightened. Mick and Keith were getting on very well, and Mick was mucking about on the drums. What they were doing was very good, and I felt, crikey, have I got anything to give? And I was very scared. Mick and Keith are getting on very well at the moment. I think it was the way this record was done. Simply. Even when I came back, it was simple. For a while, it was just the three of us.
A lot of the work that I would have been exploring with was done with Mick and Keith did it on their own.
I've been traveling, but I don't know where. I've been missing you, but you just don't care. And I've been wondering, I see Greece and Rome, lost in the wilderness, so far from home. Yeah, yeah. I've been to Africa, looking for my soul, and I feel like an actor looking for a role. I've been in Arabia, I've seen a million stars, been sipping champagne on the boulevards, yeah.
Keith, the vibe is a lot better. Mick and I are looking at each other and going, oh, come on. I'm not going to argue about this. There are too many pluses for an odd minus to get in the way. Maybe it's called growing up. For the first time in decades, they were making a record almost entirely on their own.
It started out just Mick, Keith, myself, and an engineer in one room.
Recording studios as we know them, you know, with the glass booth, and there's the control room, and there's the studio.
Keith, only Mick still thinks you have to take things into real recording studios to really make a real record. He got proved totally wrong on A Bigger Bang, especially because we did it all in his little chateau in France. We had got the stuff worked up, and he said, now we'll take it into a real recording studio. And Don Was and I looked at each other, and Charlie looked at me. Fuck this shit. We've already got it down right here. Why do you want to spring for all that bread? So you can say it was cut in so-and-so studio, the glass wall, and the control room. We ain't going nowhere, pal. So finally, he relented. Mick, we were in such a confined space. Some of it was in France, some of it in the Caribbean, without loads of hangers-on. There was nowhere to hide. Is it good? Is it not good? Then bung it out the window. There were no 3-hour blues jams. There wasn't time. Keith, Charlie's illness pulled Mick and I together quicker than I would have expected, because the man does like to keep his distances. On the basic level of putting songs together, it made us play together more, on guitars and piano. Mick as a guitar player has finally gotten there. He's also a good drummer, not in a technical sense, but he's got a great beat, good feel. It was all built on 2 acoustic guitars, and in such a sparse and stripped down way that if you tried to elaborate on it later, you'd lose the whole essence of it. Mick, there was quite a lot of Keith and I together alone, but we have done it before. This was just extended because Charlie wasn't there. I felt Keith always wanted Charlie there too early in the process. It's much better if you've worked it all out so that when he gets there you say, this is how it goes, and it's not hit and miss. We pared it down and the intimacy worked. It was a better vibe than last time, but you never know why that is. We weren't only in my house in France, but wherever we were, yes, it was kept simple. We were in places where there wasn't a lot of distraction, so we just got on and did what we did with this small group of people, and we were very focused.
I had a great time with Mick this year, putting this thing together. Just look forward to playing with him. Yeah, don't tell him that. Oh, shit, I've let the cat out of the bag now. It's always an adventure.
Keith, we kicked off this album on a small scale, and we kept it like that all the way through. There's nobody on it except the band. This album said, don't elaborate on me. Make me small, and I'll give you a big one. In June 2005, the Stones headed to Los Angeles for final overdubs and to mix the album at Oceanway and the Village Recorder. Ironically, the same city where Bridges to Babylon had been made, but this time, the sound was different. A Bigger Bang was stripped down, urgent, and direct. A Bigger Bang ultimately became the Stones' most stripped-down album in years. After repeated criticism of overproduction and drifting from their core band sound, the Stones finally answered the call. The intimate, minimal approach that began during pre-production carried straight into the recording sessions. Many tracks feature just Mick, Keith, and Charlie, a return to the raw chemistry that powered their classic years. The Glimmer Twins even split bass duties. Mick plays on 4 of the 16 tracks, Keith and Daryl Jones handling the rest. Mick also broadened his instrumental role, contributing slide guitar throughout the record, acoustic slide on Keith's This Place Is Empty, and the bottleneck lead on Back of My Hand. Fans had asked for a raw, back-to-basics Stones album, and this time, they got it. With the album now complete, on May 10th, the Stones were back on stage at the Juilliard School of Music in New York City to announce the new album and the new upcoming world tour. Just a year earlier, the future had been uncertain. Now, they were about to embark on a tour that would last 2 years into 2007. A Bigger Bang debuted at number 3 on the US Hot 100 Billboard charts, while it hit number 2 in the UK with the album going platinum and gold in those countries respectively. When the Bigger Bang tour wrapped, it was the highest grossing tour of all time. The tour also saw 2 other milestones in the Stones' career: performing at the Super Bowl halftime and then filming the Martin Scorsese concert film Shine a Light. A Bigger Bang, the Stones' 24th US album, may be just one in a long line of albums in a tremendous discography, but the album stands as a symbol of the Stones' resilience. However one feels about this album, it remains in many ways Charlie's record, a testament to his determination and quiet resolve. When things get tough, the tough get going, and the Rolling Stones have always embodied that spirit. Time and again, the universe has tried to slow the Rolling Stones down. With A Bigger Bang, they proved once more that there would always be another chance, another song, another glimmer from the world's greatest rock and roll band.